there's two handouts. We have an agenda, and then we have the proposed amendments. So we'll make sure everybody got copies of that. We have them up here on the table if anybody needs anything. How are you?
Starting right off with the mic, huh?
2 o'clock sharp.
Get a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Maybe we need that. Is Jeff causing trouble? Okay, I think we're going to get started. Thank everyone for coming out to our third advisory committee meeting. Thank you all for attending. You should have received two handouts. We have the agenda for today, and then we have another document is the proposed amendments that we're going to go through. So the way we're going to work today is we're going to start out in this group setting here. We have two objectives. The first is we want to go through the comprehensive plan amendments, have a discussion about that document you have in front of you, and have that discussion. After today, we will have a public meeting in a week on the 18th at 4 o'clock at the Davis Center, at the Davis Art Center, 4 o'clock till 7 to discuss everything we're doing here today. So that will be next Thursday. So I would like us to have a discussion today about these proposed amendments, get your input and feedback on what we have in this document as a group. And after we have that discussion, however long we need to take, we'll do that. We'd like to break up into our workstation areas here that you see, the 3 workstations, and discuss the vision plan for Midtown. These are kind of two efforts that are going on simultaneously. They dovetail with each other, obviously, and they certainly impact each other, but they're a little bit different, on a little bit different track. The comprehensive plan amendments, those are more technical in nature. They involve action by council to transmit these proposed amendments to the state for review and provide comments on, and then come back to the city council for a final adoption. So we have that process that we have to undertake. At this point, we're looking at February 5th for that council meeting to have that public hearing of that transmittal of these comprehensive plan amendments. And part of this is also with the vision plan of Midtown. So that process is going on right now. We're in mid-process, so we're certainly looking for additional feedback on that process, and that will continue to take place after the February 5th council meeting. So at that point, we'll have a draft, a working draft, I would say, at this point of the vision plan. for Midtown. And so that effort of working on the vision plan will continue for the next couple of months. So that's by no means is a complete project. And that will get into more in the detail of kind of what we see for Midtown in terms of the types of development, the intensities of development. So the point of the comprehensive plan amendments is to provide a framework, an overall framework to work within. And once we have that established, then we'll get into the details of the land development code, updating the land development code. Where do we want to apply different zoning districts within these areas? So with that, what I'll do is kind of start with kind of going through what we have here on this document. We tried to address as best we could the concerns we felt that the public had voiced previously and has been voicing throughout this process in terms of concerns that everyone has had regarding the density issue. Previously there was the opportunity to provide a density bonus, a height, and also a height bonus. There really was no limit on that. It was to be addressed in the land development code, and I understand there was a concern that was not addressed within the comprehensive plan in the future land use element. And so we felt it was important that we did address that issue in the comprehensive plan, that we provide an overall maximum within the future land use that would be allowed. So I'm just going to go down these point by point, and we'll start with number one. We are creating, and this was previously proposed, creating a new Midtown South future land use category. We felt it was important to do that because we didn't want to just extend the downtown future land use district into that area because there are some different circumstances, different conditions, and so we felt it was important to create a whole new future land use, and we could decide which zoning districts we wanted to apply there. Maybe there were certain amenities that we wanted to incentivize for that area that may be different from downtown. So we thought it was appropriate to create a whole new future land use for that area, which basically goes from MLK down to Edison, Fowler, over to Evans. So that would be the Midtown South future land use. On number two, the standard base allowable density, not including bonus allocation, has been increased for the downtown district from 35 dwelling units per acre to 70 dwelling units per acre. The proposed Midtown South also will have a standard density of 70 dwelling units per acre. And I'll jump ahead actually. What we're also proposing with that is a bonus maximum that you can apply for, which would be 30%, which would basically be about 92 units per acre. So you could apply for additional bonus up to 92. You could also get the additional height and FAR bonus as well. So for number three, the allowable intensity floor area ratio for downtown, what we did here was previously it was combined residential and commercial, residential, non-residential FAR, which isn't really, you can do it that way, but what we did is we took out the residential, so the residential no longer counts towards FAR, and we lowered it to 4. And that's just a number we're working with right now. It's certainly not written in stone, but we felt that was a good starting point to work with 4 for non-residential FAR only. Residential is regulated by density. I mean, that's how your residential is going to be regulated. Non-residential can be regulated by your FAR. So we thought it made more sense to take the residential component out of the FAR and just focus on the non-residential and making that 4. Density, number 4, density intensity limits are no longer included in the comprehensive plan for individual zoning districts. You see them listed there, 70, 40, and 12. To put them in the comprehensive plan, you can do that, but if you want to make changes to them, you're going to change the comp plan. If you want to make changes to them in the zoning district, then you just have to change the zoning district. It's a little bit easier process to have to go through. In most municipalities, most local governments, they do not put the individual zoning district densities within the comp plan. Those are addressed in the land development code. Here we are addressing the overall density limitation. That's what's important in the future land use is what is your maximum allowable density for that future land use district. Then we get into the details of the individual zoning districts. And we get into the details, okay, what do we want to apply where? What's appropriate density in this area, what's appropriate in this area. And that's kind of what the vision planning gets into, is getting into that level of detail with, okay, where should we have 70, where should we have 40, where should it be lower, stuff like that. Again, bonus density will no longer, on number 5, bonus density will no longer be allocated based on criteria 177. Basically, this will be put into land development regulations, how we want to allocate those densities. On number 6, as I had mentioned previously, the bonus density, intensity, and height is allocated through policy 1.9, which basically a maximum bonus of 30% above the standard density, intensity, and height will be allowed. Developments approved for those density, intensity, and height bonuses will be subject to a bonus incentive requirement. Those will be outlined in the land development regulations. Again, we didn't want to get in too much. We wanted to set the overall parameters from which you can work within. So we wanted to set overall densities, overall bonus allowances in the future land use. Then we'll get into the details in the land development code. Number of bonus dwelling units and the amount of bonus non-residential units, intensity available based on the surplus capacity in the area of the proposed development. Number 7, study conducted to determine the amount of surplus utility capacity which is currently available. Basically, this is nothing new. We have the different areas with the maximum number of surplus EDU units. Those are staying. We still have that. That's not going away. We're still going to have the maximum number of units that we're going to in downtown. It's just now we're also providing a maximum density on a project base as well. So rather than an overall number of unit limit in downtown, we're also applying that density limitation on a project basis as well. We did recommend establishing a transfer development rights in downtown so that we can take some of those units that are allowed on parcels that you can't build on and transfer them to another property. Number 9, proposed future land use. This is important. We felt, and this was something else that was made very clear that we needed to address, was neighborhood protection. So we wanted to put a policy in the comprehensive plan that addressed neighborhood protection, at least in terms of making sure that you're not going to have high-rise, tall buildings next to low-rise residential. So we added a policy that stated that Policy 1.11 provides residential neighborhood protection by limiting building heights to 6 stories for new development and redevelopment adjacent to properties zoned urban general, and no bonus height would be allowed for those properties. So basically, that's most of Gardner's Park is urban general, and so this would apply to those areas adjacent to Gardner's Park that if you're next to urban general, you can only go up to 6 stories. Again, this is not written in stone either. I mean, we can play with those heights, but we want to put something in the comprehensive plan that does start to address that issue of providing neighborhood protection. And then let's see, just to wrap that up, there's a lot of moving parts here. We have the existing comprehensive plan. We have what was previously proposed for changes to the comprehensive plan. And then we have what we're proposing now. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It can get complicated to kind of understand, okay, what's different from the current code, what's different from what was proposed last year, what are we proposing now? So we just kind of try to summarize those in 1 through 3. Just real quick, I'll read them. In previous amendment, bonus density, intensity, and height was only limited by the amount of available surplus utility capacity. In addition to the surplus capacity limitation, the currently proposed amendment limits to the 30% that I mentioned before. Again, the neighborhood protection policy, we're adding, that was not in there previously in the previous amendment that we're providing for now. And also we just took out the density ranges in those 3 zoning districts in the land development code, and are just going to address those, or out of the future land use, and we'll address those in the land development code specifically. So I know there's a lot of information here, and I apologize. We wanted to get this to you sooner. We were working on it late, and so that's why we have it to you now. I wanted to kind of get it to you yesterday. Unfortunately, I apologize. Was not able to do that, so I know there's a lot here to try and absorb all right now, so, be happy to answer any questions. If you certainly have, later on, you come up with questions, I'll be happy to answer them then as well. So I'm going to start with this gentleman right here.
Number one, I heard you say MLK, but I don't see it written down. That Martin Luther King was included in Midtown South.
It should be, if it's not written there, it should be, because that's the north border of that designation. Yeah, it should be. No, it should be. MLK is the north boundary of it. That's. Yes, sir.
You said "we" a lot. Can you expand on who "we" is and what went into the product that we're now discussing?
Well, I think we is all of us collectively, we. And so we took the input back from this committee, input from USF. They certainly provided us a lot of input from staff. So I think collectively, we are, all of us in this room is we. And so I will add to that, you know what, is everybody going to agree to everything that's on here? Probably not. And I understand that. But can we come to a consensus that, for the most part, this is the direction we want to move forward in? Hopefully we can get to that point. We can discuss the details of things that were mentioned in here, and we can work on those things and tweak certain things, absolutely. This is by no means a finished product. It's the beginning of the product, and as I mentioned before, this has to go to council on February 5th to get this process started in terms of presenting it and submitting it to the state for their review. And then they have their 30-day review period. And then when it comes back, we have another 180 days to make revisions to it if need be. So
I think the question is, who is the group of people who came up with these recommendations?
Right. Steve, maybe let's talk about the website. There's a website. It's on the bottom of your page. And I want to get you caught up on what's going on. On the bottom of your agenda page, it's My FM Midtown Downtown. We have video from the two previous meetings that we had, so you can see who was here and everything. But basically, you can take a look at our list, and that's the advisory committee group that has been attending in the last two meetings.
But did that advisory group come up with these? I've been to those. I wasn't involved in these conversations. Was everybody else? Perhaps they were.
We being staff at USF came up with the language you see here based on that feedback we received at the meetings. So yeah, I apologize. That's yes.
So I have about 9 specific things I want to talk about. Does this constitute the public hearing on this that's going to be voted on February 5th, or are we having more public meetings on the amendments before the February 5th?
So there will be a meeting on the 18th. That'll.
On the amendments, not on Midtown, on this legal document.
Right. Everything we're talking about here today, we will talk about at that meeting as well, on the 18th. So we're going to present, if we make changes based on this meeting, if we need to make changes to this, we'll present that on the 18th at that public meeting that's open to the public, and then.
I mean, how in-depth do you want us to get on this right now?
Well,
There's a lot of details.
I think in the interest of time, I mean, you can provide me some input, and that's fine. We can do this, or if there's more detailed information you want to provide, you can do that as well outside of this.
Okay, well, I'll just make one general statement. I think that's fine, extremely uncomfortable and not accepting that comprehensive plan amendments would precede our seeing a plan first, a consensus of public vision that resulted in the plan, and the land development codes that will follow. The vision comes first, the plan comes next. The code and comprehensive plan amendments need to be presented to the public as one package, because it's only in the code that we know how this is going to be implemented. To string it out like this was one of our number one complaints last year, and it will remain a problem. It's not a good way to do planning. And we need to have public, this has been changed substantially. since the last year. We are in a continued public hearing process. I don't think it would be legitimate to continue that public hearing process with a substantially rewritten document. And I would request public hearings specifically on this amendment. Actually nix that last statement. I simply request that we have our land development codes and our comprehensive plan amendment together.
Well, and there's different opinions on that. And I would say that, you know, the land development code regulations are going to closely follow. You have to have the comprehensive plan amendments in place. And I'm not saying that we have those adopted before we start addressing the land development codes. Absolutely not. The land development codes, that process will start immediately once we have been able to transmit this amendment, so we know what we're working with. So between transmittal hearing and adoption hearing, we will work on the land development code regulations, absolutely. When we get to the point to adopt the comprehensive plan amendments, we should be ready to have the land development code amendments to adopt as well. So they will work in tandem. We're not going to go through this comprehensive plan amendment process, adopt it, and then go back and start over with the land development code. Absolutely not. We're going to do them concurrently with the respect that we have to at least start the comprehensive plan amendment process so we know what we're working with. And if we can get the endorsement of this committee, we can take it to the council and get it transmitted, then we know what we're working with. Then we know what our parameters are to work within, and then we can start drafting land development code regulations. Right now, I don't know what they would be because we don't know what we're going to have. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I get that, but we are doing that, really. I mean, it's just kind of one is kind of trailing right behind the other, and that's well, I don't think that's a problem, and you know.
Well, it's a problem in this context, in that there is a, I'll say, lack of trust, given what happened last year, and given what happens many times between the city and the citizens. In a different context, I would say, yes, fine. And I certainly have trust in you as an individual, not so this city system right now. And I think it behooves the city to err on the side of maximum citizen input.
Well, I don't disagree with the maximum city input. I mean, we're absolutely taking city input, and we will continue to take city input after February 5th. This is not the end of city input or public input. I mean, this continues after February 5th with public input, absolutely. We're going to be working continuously on the vision plan. We need to further refine the vision plan and what we want to see. We will continue, if we need to make revisions to even to the comprehensive plan amendments, we can continue to do that with additional meetings afterward, as long as they're not significant, obviously, from what the state has seen. But we can continue working on these things, and we will continue working on these things after that meeting. So, yes, we want public input. I mean, is there a certain time constraint we're working with? Yeah, there is, and we're trying to balance both of those things together, you know, and have these public meetings, have the advisory committee meetings, but also keep the process moving as much as we can and continue to have those public meetings throughout this process is the idea. Somebody else? Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah, it seems there'll be
Hold
one
on.
final public meeting. Actually, it won't just be the final on January 18th. It'll be the first public meeting where the public writ large is notified of this. So that's just one public meeting for something this massive. And is there any way, you know, people may be working on that date to have some other opportunities for input? Can what's put on display at the Sidney and Byrne Davis building, can that be left up until February 5th? Could there be somebody there to explain it to the public if they walk in, especially during art walk and music walk, when you know you're going to get a lot of foot traffic in there? And how are you going to get the word out to the public that this is happening at Sidney and Byrne Davis? And there are a lot of, I talk to my neighbors a lot, and the concern is, yeah, they're concerned and interested in this,
but the city doesn't have the trust of the citizens, and they say, there's no point going down and wasting your time giving input when it's not going to be listened to. So how, in reaching out to the public, do you plan to overcome this very steep hurdle?
Sure, that's a challenge, and I understand that challenge. And obviously, I can't speak for what happened before. I started here in June, so I'm coming in this new to a certain degree, and with my own set of fresh eyes, and maybe with some rose-colored sunglasses on a little bit here as well. But you know, these advisory committee meetings are not your typical advisory committee meetings. A typical advisory committee is 12 to 20 people at the maximum. This is a 60-some. Over 60 people on this advisory committee. We have many members of the public attending these meetings on a regular basis. To me, these are public meetings because we get a lot of people that come to these meetings that aren't on the invite. They hear about the meeting and then they come to it, and that's fine. We want them to come to it. So it's not like it's this small, select group of people that have been having these meetings. This being the third advisory committee meeting. So we feel like we've been having public meetings throughout this process. And you know, and maybe Kay can speak more to what we're doing as far as outreach to get the word out as far as the meeting next week on social media, the website, different things on the public TV, to different organizations, downtown property owners association, and just some other groups we're trying to get the word out to. So you know, I know it's a challenge, and you know, I can't really speak to the distrust issue. I mean, it's there. I'm trying to just you know, trying to overcome that, and I can tell you where I'm coming from in this whole process, and to me, as a planner and as a certified planner, what I feel should be done and what we will do, and I've got the city manager's support on that. You know, we need to address the land development code and how we're going to implement all of these things, because you can't just do one piece without the other. Absolutely, you can't. It won't work. So we're not going to just do the comprehensive plan amendments and then say, okay, we're done, and that's it. It just won't work. There's no point in doing it then. We have to do the next step, and we will do the next step. Talk about the timing of it. I mean, that's just a difference. But so I'm not sure how well I answered your question. Maybe Kay can help with just kind of where we're putting the word out a little bit.
Yeah, as Steve said, we are doing it through social media, the city's Facebook page. It is on the city's website. It is also through Nextdoor app. Several people are receiving that. We are also going through Downtown Property Owners Association and the email list that we can get to the people that we know will send out some of that information. We have 5 variable message boards that will be posted. I believe they're going up tomorrow, that will be posted around the area, East Fort Myers, West Fort Myers, South in Midtown area, and then also MLK and downtown. So those will be out there. We also intend to do an advertisement in the news press to get that out. We are also talking with the news press to make sure that they're going to cover the story and get it in the paper before it happens.
Next. Jerry. Either way.
Hi, Ann Martindale. I have several questions. And one is, are we going to be able to have a copy of the entire revised comprehensive plan that will be voted on? Because it's really hard to fit this into, I printed out from the website the last comprehensive plan, which I believe was amended in June. And like right now, policy number 8 is designated industrial. So if you're substituting the Midtown for industrial, you know, where's industrial going? And a lot of these things are just confusing to me, like your discussion of number 7, where you've got this surplus capacity program still going, but you said it goes development by development. I really don't quite see how that functions at all. I have a particular and personal concern about their limiting building heights in urban general to 6 stories.
No, that's not.
That's
no.
not, I didn't read that correctly. Well, see,
No.
that's, in a way, that's my point. I mean, this is a lot coming at you. I'm looking down here at policy number 9, limited building heights for new development adjacent to urban general properties. Urban general is in the historic district of Dean Park, and to have 6-story buildings next to a historic district, to me, is just wrong and completely inconsistent. And circling around to Anne's point about having the land use code come later, to me it just, what if you do something, what if you conclude that some provisions in the land use code are inconsistent with the comprehensive plan that you've already circulated? I mean, it just makes a lot more sense to do them both in tandem. And today you've said that a lot of the really objectionable things are being kind of kicked down the road to be part of the land use code, and that makes us even more interested in having the land use code issues resolved now without having the comprehensive plan necessarily approved now. I don't understand the urgency in having the plan approved now. I think it should get more public input and more thought and happen together. And I think the public input is really lacking. I mean, at the last meeting, you actually said, Kay, that the public was not invited to this meeting. So I will say that there hasn't been a great interest in getting widespread public input. So my counsel would be slow down, do them both together, and let's take our time and work out these difficult issues together. Thanks.
So I'll just try to address the one issue on the height. Well, if you want to remind me of the other ones, I'll try and tackle those as well. But on the height, we have to be careful. We have to be careful when we're limiting development. Okay, we're basically taking away somebody's development rights by doing that. So you say 6 stories is too high. Well, right now, you could go higher than that on some of those properties that are zoned a different designation that could go higher. So you can't just say, well, they shouldn't be allowed to go whatever. I mean, 6 stories is actually, to me, is a reasonable height.
I don't actually think that's correct.
What's correct? What's not correct?
On the height that you can build in urban general right now.
No. Urban general, you can only go 3.
Right.
Okay. The property next to it, you can go higher than that. I believe you can go, I don't have it off the top of my head, but if you're in urban core, you can go much higher.
Right.
18.
But
Right.
I'm just talking urban general, and so these are, the heights are going up in urban general.
No, they're not. No. We're not proposing any increase in height in urban general at all.
You just said it could go 3, and now you're telling me it could go 6.
No.
But you know what?
The
I'm not going to
properties-
get it. I'm not going to get us bogged.
No, I'm
down in
going to
this. But
explain
I mean,
this. I'm going to explain this because it's important that you understand and everybody here understands. The properties adjacent to urban general, not in urban general, urban core, those properties have a much higher height limit than urban general. So what we're saying is if you're on one of those properties adjacent to urban general, not within urban general, adjacent to urban general, you can only go 6 to provide.
If you're adjacent to urban general.
Yeah, yes. If you're
So it
adjacent.
would have to be in another zone entirely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
To provide neighborhood protection for those properties in urban general.
Well, that's better. Thank you.
What else what else was it that I can address?
Hold on, I wanted to say something real
Okay.
quick about why we did advisory committee groups. The city partnered with USF, CRA, and we followed what USF was telling us, and that is we need to have a group small enough that we can talk to people, we can get feedback from them. They wanted to do this part of the exercise first before we started actually having public meetings, because several of the people that are here have expressed an interest in the downtown, midtown, Gardner's Park area. So we felt like these were key players, and we wanted to get your input first to make sure that we were moving in the right direction. So that's why we started out with a smaller group than to just open it up to a public meeting. But as Steve said, there will be many more public meetings.
Hi. Jerry Miller, president of the Gardner's Park Neighborhood Association. Just a couple clarifications. Talking about number 6, maximum bonus of 30%. Allowed in the downtown district and midtown south district. When you say downtown district, are you including urban core, urban center, and urban general?
Yes.
Okay. So as you know, we've met for years and we came up with numbers, recommendations in the Gardner's Park Vision Plan of 18 units
Right.
maximum per I met with USF with a site plan that showed actually in the low 20s, and they thought that was very appropriate as well.
Right.
And then we talked about heights of 3-story, but up to 5 through a certain public process. Now, can you clarify, I think I understand floor area ratio, but could you achieve a 5-story building under any ways in urban general?
Could you achieve a 5-story building in urban general?
Correct. That's the question. Because I know there's some plans showing some higher than 3-story buildings, which the Gardner's Park group debated a long time and said yes, as long as there's some kind of public process for that extra 2 stories. So trying to figure out FAR, 1 FAR and 12 units plus the 30%, could you achieve a higher than 3-story building under any scenario based on what you're recommending?
I'm not sure. I'd have to run the scenario. And maybe,
Please.
It is possible, I'm sorry. Yes, it is possible, but you can actually do that as a result of an individual design, let's say, because we architects, we can sneak floors in or mezzanines in that don't necessarily get counted as floors, but we can still stay within an overall building height limit, let's say. In most instances, neighborhoods, height limit is about 35 feet in a lot of cities, and which suggests that a 3-story building would fit within that. Well, sometimes you can squeeze out another floor, another mezzanine, so to speak, within that without going even taller. And I think that's when you I'll talk about this in just a minute. We'll talk about it even more so when we break up. But you'll see for the density scenarios that we are recommending for Gardner's Park, they are all within that roughly about 35 feet range, height range.
We did understand that the Gardner's Park vision plan would be, respected,
Right.
and we thought in certain areas of Gardner's Park that 5 stories could be appropriate.
Oh, yes.
With the right design. But you're telling me, well, the path to that is quite difficult.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
And I probably
It's just-
better understand the FAR, but for 1 FAR, I think that is going to be difficult. So maybe there's some flexibility in that we can look at. My project is 3 stories, so I'm okay with that. But maybe when you talk about 30% of the standard density increase, maybe that's for core and center, but maybe
Right.
for general it goes to 40% because of the small scale housing we're trying to do, the multifamily housing we're trying to do, varied types of housing. Well, maybe we need to have that 19 to 20 units an acre. In this scenario, you're
Right.
really capped off at 17 according to my
Yes.
figures. So.
Okay.
yeah, that's a good point. And I think that also is a good example of why we don't want to tie the land development code to the comp plan, because we're going to get into those issues and to the minute details of those issues, and we can go through that process for quite a while, and we're going to hold out the comprehensive plan amendment. So we're not saying we rush things through, but let's set our parameters in the future land use element. We know what our maximum is, and that's where we work within that. And then underneath that, we work with exactly what you're talking about. What should the density be here? What should the FAR be here?
On almost a project per project basis.
Yeah, and I know in Gardner's Park, 2nd Street is an area you want to provide for some increased opportunity.
Exactly.
We can address that, absolutely, but that gets addressed in the land development
That
code.
is, on the end site plan, that was the commercial corridor along Second,
Right.
and 3 stories might not make it a financial feasible project.
exactly.
But I also this seems to be streamlining the PUD process in a way, like doing away with it. It's a set kind of criteria. So I think, is that part of the goal to get less PUDs and more bonus density?
We would like to see less PUDs. We would like to see a more predictable process that everybody understands and knows, from the people that live in the community to the people that want to develop in the community, that everybody, it's not a guessing game, and that we all know what's allowed and what we can do and within what parameters.
And I think it's fantastic that a lot of the Gardner's Park items have been codified. So I think the city is for this type of artisanal, smaller scale housing,
Yeah.
development here.
That's the exciting part, is the land development code, doing that part, because that's where you're really working on the details of things.
Nuts and bolts.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts, implementing the vision, whatever that vision plan is going to be for Midtown, is implementing that in for Gardner's Park as well. So, the comp plan amendments, like I said, and I keep saying, they set the overall parameter, and the framework to work within. And then we can work in these details and what we want to, you know, how we want to
Sure.
implement those things.
Like,
So,
and there's going to be a cost associated with the bonus density based on the excess capacity, which is yet to be determined and flushed out. Is that correct?
right. So,
Okay.
Jennifer, I think had a question, then we'll go to Mr.
Hi, Jennifer Sapin. There was a question earlier about the comp plan and a full version of it rather than just these bullet points.
Yes.
Is that available online yet?
That will be available. We can make that available right after this meeting. I think it's going to be available. We can make it tomorrow or
If you send it to me, we can put it on the website.
yeah. So we'll do that. We'll make sure it's available for everybody. Yes, ma'am.
Wait, let me grab him real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't see that from here.
Yes.
The way you're discussing this, I get the feeling that whatever happens on February 5th is a fait accompli. Whatever is going to be presented, they're going to vote to send it up to the Department of the Economic Opportunity. And between now and then, there'll be one public hearing, essentially, as Mr. Gibson pointed out. Back in April, 2 years before April of 2017, 2 months before you came aboard, the City Hall was filled with people. I mean, there was standing room only, and our main complaint was that there were no public hearings on the Johnson Engineering Comp Plan. This is an amendment to the Johnson Engineering Comp Plan, and there'll be one public hearing. And to the point that Gene was making, and that's been alluded to by Ann and Ann, this isn't what we want. This isn't what we want. This is the second time I've been to one of these advisory committee things, and I'm not even on the advisory committee. I wasn't invited to be to come to the first one, even though I was the first one to speak in April. One of the 42 people who spoke at the city council to object to them sending this up. And again, I ask the same question I asked then: what is the rush? What is the rush? And why will this not be the product of public input instead of something that's sent in spite of it?
And so I'll just respond to that by saying I watched the meeting, and what I gathered from that is the biggest issue was the lack of a control of density. There was unlimited density bonus that you could get. That, to me, from what I took away from the meeting, I understand there was also issues with not enough public input. I heard that, but to me, the number one issue I heard was there was no cap on density. And
Mr. Belden, that's not exactly what the city council voted on. The city council voted to have more public input before they set it up.
and I believe we've done that here.
Except we haven't. This isn't public.
You're here.
I'm here because I heard about it. I wasn't invited. I wasn't invited to the first one, and I only mentioned the second one because it was something that a friend advised me was going to happen. I don't understand why.
So is there an issue with the substance of what we're proposing, or
I have no idea. I just know that it's not the product of public input, and that was our beef. And if you don't solve that, you'll still have the same beef.
yes?
Cindy Butler, I have to agree with some of the comments that were stated before. It seems like if the two documents don't go together, we really don't have all the information. And it seems like these are pretty big changes to the comp plan. The appropriate process, it seems, would be to go before the planning board. So it's something to think about. And one of the concerns we had previously is allocation of bonus densities. Will there be public amenities required to get that bonus density? I mean, we need to have that information. And will there be any kind of height restrictions? Need to have that information. And you had mentioned the eliminating of the PUD process. That's good for developers, but it really writes out any kind of public notification or public input. So those are some of the concerns I have.
I just have a question. Although I'm a consultant for the city and I don't work for the city, how much public input do you feel is appropriate? I mean, is there a certain number of meetings that you feel is appropriate? Is there a different direction we should go to have maybe some meetings where we sit down with folks like you about the advisory committee, or I mean, I'm sorry, about the comp plan, and really dig into that, like a comp plan 101, and go through some of those items? I mean, we're here to talk about it, so please give us your feedback as to what you'd like to see. We hear that it's not enough, but what do you feel would be more than enough? Just have to get to a certain trust level, or?
I don't think it's ready to go before the city council the beginning of February. I mean, there's a lot to look at and think about here, and I think it's all pretty last minute. I'd like to see a few more meetings and more discussion.
Public meetings with just discussing the comp plan amendments?
Well, I'd like to see the comp plan amendments as well as the proposal for the land development code. I'd like to see all the information.
To answer your question, for me, it's not a number of meetings that would be rather arbitrary. It is the process. This Midtown planning process is really, really good. This is what we should have had before any comp plan amendment was ever even thought about. We need to have this type of interactive process, and we need to have a vision. Somebody has in mind a goal that this is to achieve. We don't know what that goal is. We don't know what that vision is. It's never been shared with us. We need to have a collective public vision, something very clear, distinct, agreed upon, and put on paper. That is our goal. And then to achieve that goal, you engage in the strategic steps of your comp plan amendment and your land development code. And that's how you do it. And Mr. Bell, and I have to apologize to you coming in where you are on this and laud you for doing so. You say you watched that public meeting last April and you took away from it that our main concern was lack of control and density. You have to understand, we had 3 minutes to speak. It is the worst kind of forum to have a serious, thoughtful, competent discussion of something that is legally binding, like an amendment to a comp plan. So it would be impossible for you to have gathered really what all of our concerns, the range of our concerns, the comprehensive whole of our concerns from that horrible format that we were shoveled into by the fast tracking of this process last spring. There are many issues, one of which we want these two to come together. And that's, a number of us have lived in really great places that are very well planned, that have very sophisticated and very knowledgeable councils or county commissions, and we've seen planning done many times, done really, really well. And to bring the land development code and the comp plan amendment forward together so everyone has all the information is an exceptionally good way to do it. And we're not real happy to settle for adequate. We want exceptionally good. We want to have an interactive forum, and we want a vision. We want the clear vision goal that we're going to move towards. Last thing is, I still have very specific, detailed questions about this. I feel like, again, this is not even the forum to bring them up because it would take everyone else's time. They may not be here for that. But at some point, we need to be able to discuss them.
Anybody have a same opinion, differing opinion? Something else to say?
I'll just say ditto. I agree with Ann. My concern has always been with the downtown historic district area. And as far as I know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, The two major open areas for development would be, I think, what they call the Smith Block and the land that's next to the City of Palms parking garage. Those, I think, are the two. How would either of those be impacted by the changes that you're proposing? Would we see an 18-story building on the Smith lot? Would we see an 18-story building on the lot next to the Palm building? I think a lot of folks have concern about that. I think we want to maintain the integrity of the historic nature and the look of downtown, and having that encapsulated with high-rise buildings is not consistent with my vision of that historic downtown area. So can you enlighten me as to your view of what could possibly happen and whether I should be concerned about that?
Well, and I can't specifically to what may happen on that property. The whole idea of is to allow flexibility within the future land use, and so we would have that cap on the density, and how those densities got applied within each zoning district would be the next part of this process for downtown and midtown. Where do we want to apply a zoning that would allow for that 70 to 90 dwelling units per acre? Where would we want to, in midtown, apply these zoning designations that would allow the highest intensity or density of uses, and where is it more appropriate to allow or permit lower densities? So that's part of this process of figuring out, okay, once we get, and I keep going back to once we get those caps established for the downtown and midtown, okay, then we work within refining that in terms of, okay, where is it appropriate for the highest density and where is it not appropriate, and going through that exercise and applying and rezoning certain areas to address that issue. And I don't know for that property in particular, we would have to kind of go through the process and have this kind of session of, okay, just like we're doing with Midtown, what's appropriate where. And again, all we're doing is setting an upper limit. That's all we're doing here, and that's what we work within. So it's kind of hard to develop land development regulations when I don't know what my limitations are. And that's what we establish here with the future land use, is we establish the limitations that we were working within, and then from there we get into those finer details of block level, parcel level of this whole process. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mark Sullivan with Legacy Harbor Marina. Has the city, UCF, or anybody done a computerized or a scale model of this whole project?
I'll let Trent speak to that if he would like, on some of the scenarios they've come up with.
At this point, we do have a 3D digital model of existing conditions in all of downtown and midtown. A lot of what you're going to be looking at today are just sketches, because we're still very preliminary in terms of the development of the plan itself. But those existing conditions we do have. I think we even showed at the last meeting one aerial view of the overall sort of urban form, and that came directly from that digital model. That will get further refined as the plan becomes more refined, where we'll be able to show you from the way the plan evolved, let's say, we'll be able to show a lot of different vantage points, let's say, from street level to aerial to whatever, using that 3D the digital model.
So it is on the website right now?
No, it's not on the website at this point. Because, like I said, it's just existing conditions. We haven't put anything in it because we haven't really developed a plan that far yet. But probably within the next 2 months, it'll start to really take shape. Yes.
The reason I bring that up is sunlight, weather conditions. Thank you. And the reason I bring that up is not just where a building may or may not be, and how it affects your neighbors. Tremendous amount of work being done, reviewing Miami's decision, Tampa, Key West, on a lot of things having to do with flooding. Lee County, Fort Myers, I'm sure is going to tail off of those things, how it's going to impact flood control, how it's going to impact seawall, those type of things, and water quality, water quantity. Also having to do with where the buildings sit in relationship to, obviously, the sunrise, sunsets, and how it affects each building. If you're going to be doing a lot of things solar, for instance, in the future, making decisions on how some of these buildings may or may not fit in relationship to other buildings can have a major effect on the height and density because of the issues that are coming in the future. So that's almost an afterthought, but it'd be something to look at as you're laying out a Disney-esque layout of what it's going to look like or potentially look like in the future. It'd be kind of neat to see that and just kind of review it based on, again, weather conditions, water, filtration, those type of things.
Yep. Thank you. Yes, a lot of those are detailed aspects of the plan. We are talking about a lot of those at this point. We've had extensive discussions, and we'll continue to talk with city engineers and public works about, particularly about stormwater management within the Midtown area. That a lot of decisions on how to deal with it will be folded into the plan, so you'll start to see those detail aspects of the plan as the plan continues to evolve.
Except the plan will have already been sent up to Tallahassee, wouldn't it?
No, not the Midtown plan. No, that doesn't have to go to Tallahassee.
What they're voting on February 5th will have already been sent up to Tallahassee.
If that process continues the way it would, yes.
And what happens if we decide to change it then? Then it all rolls back around, we have to do it all over again, and then all over again. And that's my point, Mr. Belden, was that there was a sense of urgency. There was this absolute sense of urgency. And I stuck around long enough in April, and then went the next day, on April 18th, in the morning, and listened to Councilman Flanders. And he pointed at the city manager, he said, I want a plan for Midtown by August, when they continued the hearing to. Okay? And nothing happened in August. All we found out in August was that it was going to be continued until February. And there still have been no public hearings.
So what gets transmitted to the state is not a plan for downtown. It's not a plan for Midtown. It's not a plan for Gardner's Park. It's not a plan. It is, and I'll keep going back to, it is setting our limits and our framework in which to develop a plan. So that plan, what we're sending to Tallahassee, it isn't going to say what's going to get built on any particular property. It's not going to say what the density will be on this property compared to this property. It takes a higher level viewpoint and a higher level approach than your zoning level. The zoning level obviously will get into more particulars of parcel and blocks, but this is a higher level effort in terms of just setting the maximum density for the overall downtown, the maximum density allowed overall in Midtown, and then within that, I understand there's mistrust. I can't do anything about that.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I know exactly what it is they're going to be voting on February 5.
Right. Okay.
What they're going to be voting on February 5 is a revision to the Johnson Engineering Plan that was presented back in April.
Well,
Is that not
it's a revision to the existing comprehensive plan and the policies contained in the existing comprehensive plan, the future.
That was what they presented to
Right.
the city council, was a complete revamping of the comp plan.
Well, it's not a complete revamping of the comp plan. I can tell you that absolutely it's not a complete revamping of the comprehensive plan. Absolutely not. We're changing certain policies within the future land use element. That's what we're doing. And when we make that document available, you will see we're making certain changes to the comprehensive plan element. We are providing a density limitation. We are providing for neighborhood protection. We are providing a bonus incentive program. That's what we're providing for. And that is setting up, and I'll repeat myself, we're setting up a framework that we work within to develop a more refined plan. What density on this property? What density on that property? That's not addressed in this. This is not addressed in the future land use element what we're going to do on individual parcels. This is a higher level document. And it's a document, it's a legal document, but it's a higher level document than your zoning level document. But you have to have that in place because the zoning has to be consistent with the future land use, not the other way around. Future land use guides, per state statute, everything from there has to be consistent with the future land use, not the other way around. So we have to have the future land use to set that parameter, to set, okay, this is the framework that we're working in. Now let's work on the land development code. Let's work on where do we want to apply these zoning designations. What's appropriate here? What's appropriate over here? That's the vision process. And that's what we can do for downtown. What's appropriate in all of these different locations. But we have to establish a starting point. And this is establishing a starting point that we go from. This is not the end of the process. This is the beginning of the process. This is not a plan.
Let me ask you the question again then. Is what the vote that's going to be conducted on February 5 a fait accompli?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes, I want you to answer it. That's why I asked it. I don't ask questions to which I do not want to answer.
I can't answer that, sir. And honestly, I don't respect the question.
But at this point, we need to probably try to keep moving. There's a gentleman that's had his hand up back here. Trent Green with USF and his students want to do some more visioning work with Midtown. So if we can just please wrap this up so that we can have enough time to work on the vision plan.
Hi, Steve, Trent, Gerald Hendry. You guys already touched on the floor area ratio, and I just had a question, and I'm really referring more to the Midtown area. I believe it's a FAR of 4. From a planning perspective, does that, and we're talking about the future land use element here, and this is kind of the broad category, this is kind of our cap. Does that give us enough flexibility at 4? I'm more of a free market guy, so I want the market to really determine what Midtown is going to be. And if the market determines that we want something a little more, I guess dense isn't the word, but a little more, and I know you touched on that it's not just, there's more that we can add. Does that give us the flexibility that we need? I know we went from 18 to 4 with this proposal.
Right, and again, the 18 to 4 is we're taking out the residential and just focusing on the commercial for the 4. And again, I think, we took an initial preliminary analysis of that, and we're going to do a further detailed analysis of that. If it needs to be higher, 5, 6, absolutely, then we'll certainly work on adjusting that. And so this is not a number that we feel is, a final number that we're set on in that respect. Right, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, keep in mind that there are comment sheets. You can always email in your comments. Steve will be around also to listen to further discussion, but I think Trent is ready to get going with his portion. So Trent, I'm going to let you explain what the next step is for today's meeting.
Okay, Jeff wanted to weigh in on this. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. My name is Jeff Burton. I'm consulting to USF, and I live in a small town that Mr. Gibson used to live in. I'm a CRA director. So, Stephen, education. What are you educated in?
I have a master's in urban planning.
And AICP, for those of us that don't know what that is.
American Institute Certified Planners, yes.
Okay, that is the premier planning certification. Currently, in the comprehensive plan, are the zoning requirements in the comprehensive plan for the downtown?
Yes.
So you're saying that you're trying to take the zoning requirements out of the comprehensive plan where they do not belong and stick them into the land use regulations?
Correct.
So basically you're just cleaning this stuff up. And right now, currently, with the zoning regulations being in the comprehensive plan, if you wanted, or anybody wanted to change them, what would the requirement be rather than having them in your land use regulations?
Well, the requirement would be the same as amending the comprehensive plan, because essentially that's what you're doing. So you would have to go through the same process of a first public hearing with council, transmitting to the State Department of Economic Opportunity. They would provide a comment period. There would be a 30-day comment period. It would come back, address any comments that may come up. Then there would be a second public hearing and a final adoption hearing, so all of this would take several months to achieve
So you're saying that if someone came in and wanted to do some development right now, and right now the building height next to Gardner's Park would allow them to go 6 times higher, that in order to change that quickly, it would be against state law to do that because you'd have to do all that stuff.
That's correct.
Okay. Comprehensive plans. How long have we had them? Do you remember?
Since the mid-1880s.
That's right. And they were enacted in the early 1990s. They were under, I think it was under Governor Martinez. We didn't have them before that. There was no concurrency. There was no, and by the way, how many, and I know it varies depending on what city you're in and if you're on the water, but there's like, what, 15 elements in a comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it varies. Cities on the coast have coastal elements, and others. There's certain elements, but some cities have more elements than others. It just depends.
But there are over a dozen in each city, right? And almost every city in the state has to have one. Now, when it comes to your zoning regulations, does the state require you to have those?
No.
So basically, you could be like Houston, Texas, and not even have any zoning. I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. I know people that live right next to roller coasters in Houston, Texas. So changing your zoning regulations on the fly is a lot easier. And one more thing, and I'm going to applaud you for doing it. The requirements for public hearings, minimum requirements, the minimum requirements for public hearings for comprehensive plan amendments.
2.
2, okay. And all the stuff that's on that website is available to the public. And it's been advertised, and it's been in the newspaper, and people have done TV articles and stuff like that. So, now I'm not saying that the minimum, because I got in trouble for doing the minimum where I live, but maximum is the sky's the limit. And what I might think is the maximum will be different than what he thinks is different what you think. So at some point, you have to pick something that's above the minimum, because that's state required, and you have to go with it. But I just want to, I mean, I know your pain. You came in, and I've done the same thing, and I came into a city with a lack of trust in the what happened before, and I sit there a lot of times and go, what did I do? What did I do? But I just wanted you to know who you're dealing with. That this gentleman, you know, he has the credentials, he has the experience, you know, the knowledge, and he's following the law. And whether you realize it or not, he's helping you fix a major problem. And there are a couple in your comprehensive plan that we were talking about earlier. But by taking the zoning and putting it in the right spot, because that's the first thing. I read your comprehensive plan, and it confused me to no end in the downtown, because your zoning is there and it shouldn't be there. And if you tried to change it, it would take you a long time using the minimum methods versus going through all kinds of meetings like you're wanting to do. So he's trying to clean up this, and he's doing a really good job of it. So that's all I've got to say. Trent Green.
Okay. Yes.
Respond to that too.
Whoops. Okay.
That's all right. That's fine.
All right. Okay. We'll let him have the last word before we
Is
go and get
this our
started.
public hearing for this?
It's not an official statutory public hearing.
It's not the minimum.
Right, and that will be happening, those happen at council.
That will happen at council, okay.
But doesn't it have to go to the planning board's recommendation? No, some of these changes
These
have
are
not
radical
gone to the planning
changes.
board. This has not gone to the planning board. Isn't the appropriate process for it to go to the planning board for recommendation?
So we discussed the planning board, and the planning board did hear the previous, what was proposed previously, and our position is that since we are further restricting what was previously approved by the planning board, we're not adding to uses, we're not increasing what's allowed, we're not increasing density, we're actually further restricting. What we're doing is we're further restricting what they approved already, or what they recommended approval on. So based on that, we didn't feel it was necessary to bring it back to them, since we're further restricting what they had already acted on.
I just wanted to respond to what you say. We know our comprehensive plan is out of date. The CDD's been asking for money for years to have a comprehensive plan update. That means the whole plan. The City Council didn't deem that important enough. I really appreciate the cleanup that's being done. Certainly the FAR of 18. I really appreciate that being changed. I agree with this gentleman. I think 4 is probably too low. I'm confused when you say we'll adjust that later. The time to adjust it is before it gets sent anywhere for a vote. We've been tracking the money spent. This city is now at close to $750,000 for the most disorganized planning process that I have seen, where the cart has consistently been before the horse. Other cities, 2 and 3 times our size, manage entire 15-element comprehensive plan updates, LDC updates, visioning, plan, process, strategic goals, public meetings for $1 million. And at nearly three-quarters of a million, we really have nothing. And it's because of the bad process. Process matters. Process is where your profit is. And the details of this paper matter. And I would like to go along with your desire to go on with Mr. Green, but I feel like we're not going to have another chance to voice these questions. And again, we're being shoveled into something like we were last spring. But I'm going to ask you a specific question. You've got a bonus of 70 by right. You get a transfer development rights of 70, let's say. So you've got 140 on your property?
No, that's not correct. No.
I mean, why not? I mean,
You get your base density is 70.
70?
That's your base.
Say you
And then you could go.
get 70 from a civically owned property that's not going to ever be developed.
No, the maximum you could get additional density you could get on your property is 30%. However, if you get that through a transfer or otherwise, you can only get additional up to 92 total.
Okay, so that's not clear because 30% is in number 6.
Right.
The transfer development rights is in number 8.
Right. And
Let's say property A gets its 30% bonus, so they're at
92.
91, 92, and then that gets added to the other property that just got their 30%, so they're at 92, so you're at 184 density all of a sudden, right? I mean, that would be legal under this?
You can slice density in a lot of different ways. And density is a relationship between the number of units and the size of the parcel that it's on.
Right.
So if you start assembling parcels together, you can make it look like whatever you want to make it look like. So.
No, I'm asking this.
And they can respond to this as well. That density is a number that you can make look like you want to make look like. So.
Oh, I understand that the value of good architecture, yes. But I'm just asking this question, since this is a would be legally binding. I own property A, I get my 30%, I'm at 92, and then I arrange for transfer of rights from property B, which also got its 30% bonus. So now I could build at 184 under this?
No.
All right,
No.
then I could build at 92 plus their 70?
No.
Why?
You would be maxed out at 92 per acre.
See, it doesn't appear to be clear here.
Okay,
And this would get argued in court. Another thing is the word adjacent. I could see the word adjacent go into court. The 6 stories adjacent to general. This is why. These are just little examples of why you want your code on the table with your comp plan amendment, because you want to know that each of them exactly expresses what you want to have expressed. I have another question. How would the exemption of floors and density in a hotel be handled in this that we have before us here?
Right, and so the hotel density would be regulated by the FAR, would not be regulated by density. And there is an additional FAR we've provided for hotel use.
But it's not included in this, so you didn't change anything of the existing I didn't see anything in here about hotels. And if I missed it, I'm sorry, but I didn't see it. But I know that their densities are exempt.
We did provide for it, though, so when we provide you the entire document, you'll see that, if we didn't put it in here.
Okay, and then you, at number 5, you see the bonus density is no longer allocated on the criteria in the land use action, and that the remaining items in that policy, I'm assuming you mean that the bonus density criteria items that remained after Johnson Engineering amended them last spring. Is that what this means? Okay. So that was a very, very inadequate list after Johnson Engineering had gotten finished with cutting out what we thought were very important public amenities. So I'm very concerned about that, and I'm concerned about how they're mentioned in number 6, and it says according to future land use policy 1.9, which I am assuming is going to take care of all the public amenities, which we already thought were inadequate in the list mentioned in number 5. How is it going to be funded? How are those going to be paid for and funded? The reference in 1.9, although it was not explicit in the presentation, was clearly linked to this fantastical 1% construction fee. That was never vetted financially, or it was vetted legally finally after the city council potential vote. So we never got an answer on how the amenities would ever be paid for. And we need those things because those are the things that people end up going to court on. We need very clear language on all the issues that I've brought up, and we have to know what the vision is that this is trying to get us towards, and we don't know it. And I'm done. Thank you.
If we could go to the next phase of the workshop, we'd like to get into going to our stations and starting to discuss the vision for Midtown and having some of that discussion. Basically, everything at each workstation is going to be the same discussion, so we're not going to have to worry about rotating this time. We'll be discussing the same thing at every table. So we just wanted to set up 3 tables just to make it a little bit easier to have interaction and provide input. So you can just spread yourselves around at the tables and we can start having some discussions. Thank you.
Before you do, hang on, just a second. I'm sorry. Please be seated for just another minute or so. So let me describe the second half of this session, because there's really 2 major tasks or issues that we want to address with this. What we have at each workstation, we have a document, a little brochure. We're calling it the Downtown and Gardners Park Density Scenario Catalog. And what you'll see is a refinement of what we had at the last committee meeting that shows density ranges for different size parcels. They are not geographically specific, but they do anticipate the sort of what we considered a minimum level of development that could respond to, let's say, the development community or market, let's say. So you'll see a number of those for parcels that could be in downtown, where there's development opportunities that still exist, or in the Midtown area, where obviously we're focusing on the vision plan. For Gardners Park, there's about 6 different density scenarios that really reflect a respect for the historical and low density nature of the community. So those scenarios look at appropriate levels of infill development, let's say, and but we want your input on these. Even though this has a little shiny little cover on it, we would be very happy if you guys marked it up Okay, we'll take a red line, take a red marker to it, add notes to it. You can comment on this. We have, of course, comment sheets on the table, but we really, really want to get your opinion about these density ranges, okay? Because many of these are what we're going to be using in the vision plan for Midtown itself. But we want to make sure that that you have an understanding about the density levels that we're contemplating for the vision plan itself. Okay. Now the second task is focusing on the graphics that you see on the wall. These are preliminary sketches for the vision plan itself, and here we're just sort of summarizing or analyzing conditions in Midtown area that we know we're going to have to address as the plan continues to evolve and move forward. The main thing that we want your opinion on, or we want your input on about that is the concept, the big idea that we're working with. Okay, and Steve used the term framework. And that's essentially what we're working towards with the vision plan for Midtown. Identifying the right type of framework for a lot of the amenities that we know local residents such as yourself would like to see emerge as part of a broader redevelopment effort. Open space features, things like that. But we really do want your input about that. Now, the big idea, the concept that we're working with, again, is a familiar one. It's no big brainstorm on our part, but quite simply, it's using a traditional urban design model, a village or town center concept. Okay. We came about this, we talked about it at the last meeting, because when you adopted the downtown plan, which was done by Andres Duani, we concluded that this approach is a direct sort of complement or supports the approach that you already have adopted. Okay. The town center or village center model is a traditional approach, and we're seeing across the United States really a sort of a proliferation of these types of developments that are intended to create these memorable places, destinations, places that both local citizens and visitors keep coming back to again and again and again. And places that create value in the community, value for the local community, and value for private sector investment, and have the enduring quality, okay, that's going to be able to, let's say, withstand the ups and downs of market fluctuations, things like that. Okay, that's the idea that we're working with. We need your input on that. We want and we know you. Everybody travels far and wide, and you've seen these types of conditions in different places or in different variations. But again, we want to know if you feel like this is an appropriate approach for Fort Myers. Okay, and oh yes, so right. So what we have pinned up, they're all the same. And of course, we have it in a reduced manner also. Okay. We also have the property ownership map, or the publicly and institutionally owned property ownership map at each table also, because we would love to hear your opinion about repurposing rather a lot of that property. We're not talking about church-owned property, but essentially the private property that could be repurposed, and other publicly owned property owned by the city and the county, let's say. Okay, and with that, how do we want to do this? Do we want to divide everybody up? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or okay. Okay, so table 1, 2, and 3. We'll go like that. Yeah. Okay. Why don't you, Louis?
How do you decide which one is going to go forward?
Well, you see, in each one of these, it's a range. Okay. So we'll come back and take a look. You know, if we see comments that suggest that this range is preferable, and somebody else said that range is preferable, then somewhere in the middle is probably where we want to wind up at. Okay.
I'm going to check this out back here too. Is this the same? What is this?
Yes, this is just a reduced version of what's on.
Oh, okay. Glasses on. You don't have to work with that wind.
Oh, okay. Is that I captured one of these guys?
I was actually listening to him. What, can you
Well, these density scenarios are examples of density range that could go in downtown Gardens. Again, we don't know exactly where. We didn't do this any particular site, but we're just saying, okay, here's some ranges of density, and we would like to ask, does this make sense in the Midtown area? Does this make sense on some remaining all sorts of downtown?
Yeah, and it's almost like it's not because this is a great plan to expand that.
Right. So here
familiar with? Been to like around where the people mover is, like that.
Yeah. So these are financial district areas have a lot of nice buildings.
They have parking. Yes. We're with most of these proposals talking about parking and parking. And then looking at sort of the compactness of the way we develop. Yeah, right. I get that part.
What does it look like? Go a little bit farther. I think she's already at the end. Oh, then you have to go the other way.
Just like a super in terms of make sure the height is parking through it.
So you mean downtown town?
So that's why we're not saying this is the state. We're saying that we're trying to find
What density looks like. Give you an idea of the scale of it and how it's looking now. Does that make sense?
High, moderate.
That's what we're saying. Could happen in downtown.
Well, I think what we're really looking for are things that are compatible with what's there, rather than something where you're just little houses.
Determine, what areas should be urban core, what areas should be urban general, urban center.
Those are already defined now. You're saying you're going to read.
You can
Move them, I know.
Yeah, you can do that.
I know.
That's the whole point of the vision plan, is to figure out, for these areas, maybe this should be the highest density here, and then going out, and taper down your density out here. So your core becomes your high density, intense area, and then as you move away, it becomes less dense, less intense. That's sort of, when talking about a vision, that's
I don't have any problem with that. What I'm trying to decide and figure out is what applies to what we are calling here downtown core. That's right. Because that's certainly impacted by your number 6.
But there's multiple zoning. I don't even know what this, honestly, I don't even know what this
That's the
is.
thing is you've got this vocabulary where there's things are sometimes one set of terminology.
It's just a way to, I think it's just a
and
way
they have another set
to
of
identify the
terminology.
different areas that we're focusing on. We have Governor's Park, we have Midtown, and we have the downtown core area. So these are just kind of the 3 focal points, 3 areas that we're focusing on. So we're going to have different things here for Governor's Park. This is out because that's all government. So, this is downtown area here, and then midtown area. So this doesn't mean anything. It's just identifying it geographically as a distinct area from here and from here. That's all. So what would we want to see here? What would we want to see here? What would we want to see
This
here?
is basically the historic district, so I'd like to see everything shorter than Hotel Indigo
Okay.
in the historic district.
Okay. And so that's what we kind of figure out.
Including that project at First, which is going to turn into the world's, that one, that building,
The
which is a
hotel,
flying
the new
horse.
hotel.
The new.
Preliminary?
No,
First.
Oh, you're talking
One
about the
place,
place on
place
First?
Yeah, where he suddenly became a hotel.
Well, it hasn't become a hotel yet, but we'll see.
We know it's going to be a hotel.
It better not be a hotel.
I don't know what it's going to be.
He's pretty much said that.
I don't
But
for any of that. But
so
anyway,
that's kind of. So don't get caught up in that stuff.
Well, I'm only getting caught up in it because of number 6, because
But those don't correspond to these they don't correspond to this. Okay, those
we got
are,
apples and oranges here.
You do. So
But it's not helpful.
I apologize for that. But somebody did this and somebody else did this, and they weren't talking about the same person.
Well,
That's all.
So, if you know, which of these, the downtown core, would fit here? Is that the same as the urban core, the urban center, or the urban general?
So what you could do is all three of those could apply.
They could,
Yeah.
in the downtown core?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm saying, say for this area here, this could be your urban core, this could be your urban center, and your urban general. That's what I'm saying. You start with your densest area here, and then you lower it as you go away. Or something different. That's just an example. I'm not saying that's what you do, but that's an example of,
I understand. So your definition of urban then is expanding outside of the downtown.
So yeah, so we're expanding it to midtown. Yeah, and not that Midtown's going to replicate downtown, not at all. But we want to kind of continue downtown, and we want to create a different kind of vibe. Maybe it's like an office, residential feel to it, and a different variety of housing types. A little bit more affordable for people to live downtown than they can afford to live in Easy.
he was talking about a town center complex, and I was confused. Did he mean a town? We obviously have a town center there.
He meant down there.
He meant here too, so another kind of little town center area.
Yeah.
Like Soho or something
like a mixed use,
It's very consistent with urban planning. I think it's a great idea, and I don't have any problems with your vision of what this is.
I guess the town center idea here is a good idea. I would support it. But are these stadiums going to go away? And what about the $500,000?
Okay, here's the whole thing. This is, again, when we talk about a vision plan, it's not saying this is what's going to happen, it's saying what could happen. We're talking currently about these fields. They're open in the future to, if there's a development that comes along that maybe wants to use this, they would entertain it. Not saying that it's going to happen, but
The county just
they may
leases
never go away.
this, right?
What's that?
The county just leases
They own,
this.
no, they own it.
They own it.
Yeah, they own it. We own this. They own this.
Okay.
So, we have development opportunities here, and it would make sense maybe here in the future. If they never go away, then that's fine. We just work around it. But it could be an opportunity.
So what your real question
Never know.
is, if you build new housing stock there,
Yeah.
how tall? Is that what we're really talking about?
That's
How
part-
tall and
well,
how dense?
But you see, it's not the height so much. It's the issue. It's the density. You want the density,
Well, I think height's a big issue.
but you can get the density without the height.
I know that,
So
but I
that-
mean,
but-
height,
so
that's
that's-
what makes people crazy like me.
Yeah, so, you could have maybe higher height here, and again, as you get away from that, you lower it. Kind of
I mean,
like,
this is all old housing stock here.
Yeah.
All this area, these are all
right.
And
old housing stock.
these all give a kind of a scenario of how you make it shorter and wider.
Right.
If you're,
It gives you examples in there of what it, would look like.
Well, I think all of it, I'd make my sense of it if you would like shorter and wider with a lot of open, with open space.
Well, but here's the thing though. If you want wider and shorter, that takes up your open space.
So you
got
balance it.
you gotta balance it. Now, if you went higher, you could have more open space.
Yeah, well, I think the height, I think excess height in a neighborhood with small little houses is really intrusive. I just don't think they.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. So, but that's the whole point of the exercise is, let's get the framework established, and then we're gonna work on all these things.
Let me ask you this, as just a citizen, if I wanted to try to do something that protected the areas of the Smith block that are down here, that did not become a high-rise area or a high-density over 7, 8 floors, how would I address that? Through the land use code?
It would be through the zoning code right now.
Through the zoning code conversation.
Yeah.
I would recommend go to the historic board. They are so interested in keeping heights to a certain level there.
Right.
That's
That's an important part of it too, absolutely.
council really
And I'm really concerned about, you know, downtown historic district, obviously Dean Park, and the other ones. But those two are most vulnerable to, you know, these little tiny setbacks and excessive height right next door. I mean,
Right, and that's why we try to put something in there to say, here, that's that urban general.
well, I appreciate the adjacent, but that's a tricky word too, because it doesn't mean across the street or right next door.
We would have to define that. We would have to define it.
So that's very tricky.
But you don't put that in you don't put that in your comp plan. You put that in
Well, I mean, if it's in the comp plan, the thing is, the language that's in the comp plan, people will use that to justify what they want to do. Like, you know, if it's adjacent, they'll say, oh, you just meant next door.
But the definition, if you have a definition in your land development code, that's where you put the definition. And then your land development. We have a whole definition section in there.
Oh, I know.
So,
but I think it should be clear in the comp plan too. I'm not going to say fuzzy language in the comp plan.
but the comp plan is policy. Policies, by nature, are kind of fuzzy. They're policies. But we also have a standard in there. You cannot be above 6 stories.
Even if you said adjacent as defined in the land, I mean.
So what's the difference? You put the same language in the land development code, or you put it in the comp plan?
Put a thing that says all words here will be defined.
All right, you write it for me. I'll put it in.
I've got a question about the bonus density. If somebody's going for bonus density, will that kick it into having to be a PUD?
You know, the idea is not have that process, but that I think it's an abuse process. Pardon? I think it's an abuse process. I mean, there's merits to using it in certain situations.
Well, if you're going for more than is by right, it would stand to reason it would have to go into a PUD.
Necessarily. There's a lot of cities that don't use that process. They do not use, you can still have a public hearing process. It doesn't have to be a PUD process though.
I guess
so you can still have that public input.
A concern I have with the way the bonus density process works now, there are all these about 7 different criteria where you get bonus density.
Right.
Well, what happens is it's developed. The Department of Community Development has a formula where they say this level of public amenity. But then the developers come in and they negotiate every one of them. And so...
And that's my point. That's my point. Exactly.
Well, what's going to... And it's only because the public comes in and says, you're giving away too much.
If you make certain things a requirement that you have to do, there's no negotiating.
It is. It gets negotiated
It is right
every
now.
time. Now it is.
Yeah, but we want to get rid of that, so you don't have that. You're giving away the file.
You're going to have a hurdle here to convince the public at large that the city council isn't going to drastically cut down.
I'm not saying that they wouldn't be involved and the public wouldn't be involved, but there's other ways to do that without doing PUD.
Well, I grant you the PUD process isn't working right now because every one of those issues for the bonus density is negotiated way down.
It's negotiated in a public meeting.
I have a certain amount of sympathy for the community. I think it's way overutilized. I mean, I come from a place where
Way overutilized.
I mean, it really, I mean, the last straw was that funeral home that came out as a PUD. Was that insane?
Yes.
Was that completely insane?
I'm with you 100% on that. It should never have.
And I don't think it to be anything other than something really unique that can be.
Well, there's a purpose for it. Like you have a unique
It's got to be unique, mixed use. But it can't be, I just want to go higher. Or I just want to go this. And so I would like to see firm town.
Well, that's what we were proposing, is a firm town. With a little bit of additional 30%. Can't go above it.
Okay, I get that. That sounds good, but I just would like to see a little more clarity on how the level of public amenities will be.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
See, is it the old list? That's what I was going to ask. Is it the old list?
I think we need to create a separate list for Midtown. Because you don't, you want there's different things you probably want in Midtown than you want for downtown.
Yeah, but see, the old comp plan had about A through I, and then the Johnson hearing got rid of open housing, affordable housing, open space, got rid of. So which ones of those are going to be in the plan?
I don't know, but I think those are all important.
But I'm telling you, if those things go away, that's going to be. I mean, we're all going to be nuts.
Another one we're talking about is maybe put in one for settled land, you know, to incentivize developers or whoever to settle land, so you can actually do that. Thought?
Keep the water, you know, being near the water in the conceptual, you know, in your process when you're designing, even in the park, or even the, you know, people come here, down here because of this, you know, and then to hold that theme of the water, the thought process when you design it, you know, even in your community somewhere, you know, it's 2 or 3 blocks from the water's right there. So it'd be a cool thing to, you know, control.
Actually, if we do that, you should have buildings right next to the water.
Yeah.
So what exactly has to
That's here.
And here's the cover. So this is. Oh, this isn't Edison Park. Edison Park's way over here.
It's further down.
This should be included. This neighborhood. Edison Park's not going to change a great
Right.
deal, but
Right.
this is primed for changing.
Well, the reason we enlarged the map east-west because we recognize this is a sort of a commercial area right in here. So we did want to show the connectivity to this area from Midtown.
Right. And Edison is planned to go through here and connect to MLK. That's already being looked at by Richard's group. So that will greatly impact this little area called Altamont, and it should be part of this plan because, in my opinion, this is ripe for redevelopment like Gardner's Park, mixed use, kind of mid-rise.
Selective infill, that type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that's right with it.
Okay.
And particularly with Edison going all the way through. Yes, you need a bigger map.
When we looked at this area, you know, it's almost like, we concluded this is almost, you know, this what we call in Midtown is almost like an island in the middle of the city. And one of the first things we said is, okay, well, why isn't it better connected? Obviously, the roads go through, but there's no relationship between this and this and this and this, that type of thing.
Thank you, FDOT. I mean, that's what they did.
Right. Yeah, we understand, you know, these are, we sort of got these state roads sort of circling the area. And we're going to come with a number of ideas for how to sort of breach these barriers, so to speak, you know, in different places. We think the idea of the road dial on 41 is a good start, but obviously doesn't go far enough.
FDOT is very willing to discuss two-way planning on these.
On Evans and Fowler? Sure.
Yeah, and it's critical for this Fort Myers Health to get rid of this, basically the auto sewer that runs through the city. And literally and psychologically divides the city by race and by income, and it's not a good thing. Yeah, we could have a unified vision on this, because a lot of other cities and counties in the state are going to be asking FDOT to do the same thing. And only those who are very clear and very unified and very persistent are going to get that money.
And we think showing locally preferred strategies for state roads as part of a vision plan will go a lot further with FDOT than just saying we want this or we want that or we want that.
Absolutely. They
Okay.
want the whole plan. They want the corridor plan. What are you going to do with it?
Exactly. Right. Because they don't, this is all they look at.
Well, not anymore. Their message is you get that land use plan in order and you show us that you have a good, viable land use plan, and then we'll dance with it.
Well, good. I hope that's the tune that they're singing with your district. Our District 7 up in Tampa. They're slowly coming around.
So, but that's their new Complete Streets message, and they are softly rolling it out. They don't want a big pushback, political pushback. These are people who hate the idea of Complete Streets.
To begin with. Right.
This block. So it would behoove us to plan well. And show how we're going to connect to this transportation hub and how we're going to deploy the various modes to relieve capacity or congestion on these corridors. This is a whole system.
I wanted you to take a look at something on the back of the parking garage. Maybe it's not sure if we had it. Back at some of these numbers on here to show that some of these buildings could get to those heights, let's say. Doesn't mean they will, because again, all boils down to how it's configured, how it's designed. We have one scenario in here, like I think it's this way. Along Fowler, where there's a lot of concern about the transition from a downtown area to a much more modest density in the Gardens Park area. Something like that, where we didn't put it on here, but this is what we call a density carrier. And as you're carrying the bulk of the density on one side, on that side, and then you reduce the height and the density on this side. Okay. Because there's no transition zone. It goes right here to that, and then boom, you're right into Gardens Park. Okay. So you can make that transition within one building. Okay, makes sense.
Well, you got the parking lot for the stadium in there, right here.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategies like that, and again, they'll be elaborated on further in the as the plan evolves. But we know those are concerns. We heard you the first time I came up in the first meeting. That was an issue. So we're taking that into consideration as we continue to make progress on things like that.
When you see what these guys can do, Sarasota.
I think these are
I
good
went
though.
up to the cities,
Okay,
they have
good.
separate cities.
Well, no matter what, there's
Really
going to be people
amazing.
who are
It's
going
almost like
to
it's
slow you down because they don't want anything. That's here in this room. We know that. But those are good for those who really want the reality.
Because I started, when we went to the ICS, shopping city, the county, Southwest Florida Community Foundation. At the time, the people had a contract on this newspaper. Said even involve them in the conversation. Because if everybody come together, they could purchase this a lot less expensive than anybody independently because all of them are right here.
Because we're gonna add to this.
He flipped it on me. But every one of these entities, okay, each one of these entities are connected. Okay, this is, all of them are impacted with this because all of them are on there. Southwest Florida Community Foundation got their new project, they got the old train station, got the news press building, the city's got its redevelopment, and the county. So
It wasn't, I mean, I can't
if they all put their money together, they can afford to get the battle. What they're doing is they're showing the existing conditions with the current traffic counts and what it looks like. Then they come back with whatever ideas we have as to how we want it to look.
Because we're definitely going to be doing those kind of things, especially in this area that will have innovation.
But that's what they
town's relationship or connectivity to those areas. But you have a downtown plan. We're not changing that, of course. There's a Gardeners Park plan that we're acknowledging. The densities that we're showing in the catalog are consistent with the earlier densities that were adopted for the Gardeners Park plan. Nothing new there. But our focus is for the planning effort, or the visioning effort, is just the Midtown area. But the way we're doing this plan is that we want to make sure that the vision that we help you to craft, that it embodies your aspirations, and it's truly connected to other parts of the city. Right now, Midtown is an island. Okay, I mean, people avoid it or they go through it, but there's no reason to stop there. Okay, and the plan is intended to change that. Okay. Yes, sir.
Will you have the catalog online?
Yes. Yes, and we're going to be amending it. We got some ideas for adding other visual information to help people better understand what those densities look like. So in the coming week, we'll be amending it as well.
Trent, I believe that will be up there after the public meeting. I believe it'll be up on that My FM downtown Midtown.
All right.
So what happened to your assignment to create a vision for downtown? Was that, I thought that was part of it.
No. Because the downtown plan is still the adopted
So
plan.
So the Duwani plan is still operable for downtown?
Yes, right. The
Okay.
thing with these density scenarios, remember, what we're trying to do there is really update the densities to reflect today's market realities. The plan was done in 2003. Here we are 15 years later. Those densities that were envisioned during that time are probably not market feasible today. Okay, so that was one of the tasks that we were asked when we got started with this effort. Okay, give us some ideas for, what types of densities should we be considering for downtown. There's not a whole lot of land left in downtown to develop. There are some. There's a lot of surface parking still, but that was the only aspect of downtown that we were asked to look at.
Well, that was a good clarification. To Mr. Sullivan's point, his area of town, you are looking at it in these discussions. They're making decisions on urban core, urban center, urban general. So the plan is different. The plan is kind of separate than that. It's the overall
Right, it
vision.
is separate.
But as part of these discussions, we are specifically talking and debating different scenarios.
Right,
Yeah, okay.
right.
Just to clarify.
Yes, yes.
I just want to ask real quickly, this proposed amendment to the land use element, the parameters, it says goes to Fowler, and you had made the point that you all have extended your planning. Can these coincide, or?
Steve, that's Ann is talking about the language that's in the proposed text amendment.
The boundaries, and
for
it
the
says Fowler. I mean, that was one of the details I wanted to talk about earlier, but just didn't seem to be the time. Logically, it should go to Evans, and Mr. Green had said that they've even kind of expanded those boundaries.
Evans is definitely, I think we definitely want to probably push it to Evans. That makes sense.
Yeah, so we can change this language too for that.
One quick last question, I promise. Could we get an update in the next 2 months or month on the progress of the two-way pair? Has actually the redesign started? I know there's some funding source issues, but is that coming up soon where we could see what that vision is of the two-way plan in the near future? First Street going back to two-way, and Second Street.
Oh, First and Second. Oh, okay. I thought you meant Fowler and Evans. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know that I don't have the timeline on that right now, and we'll certainly get that to you. I know it's soon, I will say that, but I don't have the exact timeline, but we'll certainly get that to everybody. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and if there are no other questions, thank you all for participating, and again, your comments are always welcome. Please, I know several of you have my email address, and I've gotten some messages from some of you. If you have a question for me, feel free to send a message.
And I would also just add to that, the same for me. If you anybody wants to provide any additional comments, questions, you can email me or call me, or we can try and set up some time to meet. I definitely want to continue to receive input, so I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for coming out.
One last thing, I just want to acknowledge my crew, my guys. These are graduate students in architecture and urban design, and for a couple of them, they're going into their last semester, so they're going to be working doubly hard to finish school as well as to help us get this plan crafted with your input. Okay, so thank you. Okay, all right.